Thank you to all of you with the South Florida Aquatic Plant Management Society and others that joined this workshop. I first want to thank Colleen for organizing this event. I'm happy to be here to speak with you. So, what is the mission of SOP technology? So, the mission is in our name, which is to stop ocean pollution. Our focus is with stormwater and specifically physical and digital solutions. And the reason we do this is because we know that stormwater pollution and trash and storm drains discharges to waterways. This causes a lot of pollution locally. For example, pollution that led to a fish kill in 2020 in Biscayne Bay. And there are also some global impacts here. Here are some images. There might be graphics, so look away if you don't want to see this. But we know that pollution impacts whales. It impacts fish, even birds that are far away in the Pacific Ocean. They have actually captured a lot of this pollution. They eat it, right? And then they die. We've noticed this in turtles as well. And of course, there are human impacts. An example can be when nutrients contribute to issues like red tide. And there are floods caused whenever you have clogged stormwater pipes, and it's expensive to clean up if it's not managed properly. Now, it's not all doom and gloom, right? We're doing our part at SOP Technologies in order to address these things. So we have mechanical engineering, manufacturing, software engineering as well. We do field implementations, and we also do data analysis when we go out in the field to quantify the results of these different solutions that we're implementing. We manufacture our patented stormwater filters. These either go on the curb openings or underneath grates. We also do custom designs that we can talk about later. And also, we have our software and our QR code storm drain markers. This helps with community engagement for the educational aspect of things and also for public works professionals. One thing that's important is that several cities have already taken action, and you can too. So this is not limited to a very large organizational effort necessarily. Now, anyone can take action, especially if you're with a municipality or some kind of stormwater group, and you can have a major impact in the way stormwater is managed. Also, you may have a project that you already want to achieve. So we have worked with several different organizations, and focusing on this workshop, we're going to help you create a plan of action. We're going to provide several examples. We'll help you take action, and we'll be available afterwards in case you have any questions. So there may be some solutions that you want to implement yourself, and the goal of this workshop is to help you with what you want to do. We're going to split it into two sections. First, we're talking about physical solutions and then software solutions. So going to the physical solutions first. On your worksheet, we're going to help you identify the key problems you want to solve with physical solutions. So here's one way to accomplish this. It's called the fishbone diagram. So on your worksheet, think about the main problem that you want to address. And we're going to break this down to make things a little bit easier. So for example, when it comes to the category of people, there's some contributing factors. So this focuses on things like human factors, like employees, customers, and management. Consider things like training, skills, communication, and motivation. On the processes side, look at things like process design, efficiency, and consistency. For equipment, this is about tools, machinery, and technology that you have. Consider things like equipment maintenance, reliability, and functionality that essentially lead to the main problem. The environment side of things, these are things like the working conditions and the organizational culture. Methods, it sounds like processes, but this can be used more to describe the specific way that tasks are performed. So it can include things like best practices or lack thereof. And on the side of measurement, this is how data is collected and how performance is measured. This can include things like the accuracy of data collection and the relevance of metrics being used. So thinking about all these different things, try to write down there in your worksheet, what are some of the main problems that you're trying to address with your solution? Again, this does not have to be related to SOP technologies and what we do, but we're talking about physical solutions here for stormwater. Ideally stormwater, but it can be something else too. Okay, so now looking at the needs assessment, focusing first on your physical solutions to consider. On your worksheet, please write down solutions that you're considering implementing. The decisions will be made as a team with your team later on, but these are just ideas of physical solutions that you would like to consider implementing. Okay, so while you're writing that down, we'll talk about feasibility studies. Okay, so this is where you're going to evaluate the technical, economic, and operational feasibility of your proposed technology. This doesn't have to be something that you do in a vacuum by yourself. It most likely will not be. So we're not really going to go too deep into that. Here's some examples from Chesapeake Bay and Biscayne Bay. So Chesapeake Bay in Maryland, they did analysis already in the past that shows that it's hugely beneficial to implement things that are good for the environment, specifically to protect Chesapeake Bay. Also in Biscayne Bay with Miami-Dade County, there was an analysis done very recently, it was updated, that shows that the bay contributes to billions of dollars to our local economy and also many jobs. So these are some examples of things that you can consider when you're trying to determine what are the different areas of feasibility from an economic standpoint. Also, you want to think about other things, such as maintenance practices, for example. Here's a quick video from Dr. John Sensoloni from the University of Florida from a stormwater management webinar where he talks about debris removal costs.
The summary comes down to two words: maintenance matters, especially from a cost point of view. You will never create a best management practice as efficient as pavement cleaning. And I say that as a person who's built a career on computational fluid dynamics of best management practices, and there is nothing as effective as pavement cleaning, especially for nitrogen. If you are able to recover that particulate matter upstream through pavement cleaning, you have done yourself a significant favor before it ever enters the stormwater system. And finally, if you didn't need more of a rationale for maintenance, look at the cost of separation and recovery. And let's just pick on total nitrogen for this purpose. BMP treatment trains, about $935 per pound of TN recovered. The Florida database for BMPs from FDEP, that goes up to $1,900 per pound. If I look at screened hydrodynamic separators, now we're over $3,000 per pound. If I go to maintenance activities like street sweeping, I'm down to $165 per pound, and catch basin cleaning at $1,000 per pound. Why wouldn't you implement maintenance practices? Building all the BMPs in the world are not going to solve the problem, and you don't have enough dollars to do so.
And there are also many different solutions to consider. Okay, so here are just some examples of a few. And again, these examples here are focusing on stormwater and stormwater debris. But really, I want you to think about your project and what you want to achieve with your project. A next area that's important is stakeholder analysis. So you're going to identify all the stakeholders impacted by the technology. For example, employees at your organization, customers, in the sense that if you're a private company, think about your customers, or think about suppliers and also their concerns. Now, early engagement is crucial. I'll give you an example. One thing that really worked well for us is when we had early engagement with the city's resilience committee when we were implementing our solutions. This helped us overcome some roadblocks along the way. Things that did not work well. One time we were working on a project and everything started off well with the pilot project, but the maintenance team wasn't really part of the conversation or the decision-making process in the beginning. So they weren't on board later on with the solutions. So that's something that you want to avoid, is excluding people that will be very important later on. Now, on your worksheet, think about who are the specific people that you should include in the conversation when it comes to your project idea. While you're thinking about that, think about the users, who's going to be using these solutions, these physical solutions, right? And if you don't understand their perspective or somebody's perspective or pain points and their needs, definitely include them, because that means that there may be a gap there and what you know and they know, and having them as a stakeholder, especially if they're going to be impacted by what you do, is critical. Another thing, and we won't add this to the worksheet because this is probably more of a group setting item of discussion with your team, is defining clear objectives. So this is like defining SMART goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound for the implementation. This essentially helps you provide a benchmark for success. On the system design side of things, this is where you're talking about the how. How are we going to do things? Okay, so designing the system and technical considerations. You're going to, for your implementation, develop a detailed plan, including timelines, resources, and responsibilities. You're going to identify potential risks and mitigation strategies, develop a training program as well, and keep stakeholders informed throughout the implementation. Don't worry about your worksheet right now for this specific item, because that's something, and these are things that you're most likely going to do as a team, but I wanted to show you now so you can consider that in the success of your project. Then you go into the doing, the pilot project. The pilot project is something that's typically small, it's controlled, testing the technology and finding any issues, right? And also finding what works. So for this, I want to show you a clip here of my conversation with Public Works Director Joseph Crow with the City of Hollywood.
When I was in the city of Aventura, we had over 200 curb inlets, and if you know Aventura, it's very well vegetated. Landscaping is their thing, and with that comes maintenance of leaves and palm fronds and all kind of stuff blowing into the road when there's storms and rain. And of course, when that goes into the road, it blocks the drains, and then you have flooding. And so our biggest issue there was when we had major rain events, Aventura would flood. So we'd have to always go out during the storms and try to clean the drains by hand, and that's not really being proactive. It's being reactive, and it's just after it gets expensive, and it just wasn't working. So we were approached with this solution for filters and grates that go in these drains, which keep debris out but allow water to go in. And we tried a pilot program and put it in our worst area. Of course, if you're going to do a pilot, you want to put it in the worst area. If it works there, it's going to work everywhere. And it worked fantastic. I mean, debris went into the road. You could see all the debris, but the road was dry and water would drain out. We'd come back with the street sweeper and just clean it up.
As you see, there are different ways of doing things. Those examples that Joe provided are related to his experience. Okay. So on your worksheet, think about what are some potential areas, geographical areas, for example, that you would like to test the physical solutions that you're thinking about. So again, this has to do with your project and what may be some areas in your municipality, or if you have private properties that you work with, that you would like to test out these solutions. You also want to consider phased rollouts. This is implementing in phases, right? This helps to minimize disruptions, and you can apply lessons learned. This is something that we learned in a project in Texas. So we customized some stormwater screens. This facility wanted to keep some small plastic pellets away or inside their facility, actually, because those plastic pellets, if they escape the facility, they will get into their waterways. So we started off with one location, and then we rolled it out to the rest of the facility and really essentially helped them cover their entire perimeter for their stormwater. This was something that was very customized specifically for them. So we did make some modifications after the initial phase, the pilot, but that just shows that it's very good to start small and then expand. Now you want to start with something that's representative of the whole and that you'll gather some good data with. On the installation and configuration side, you're thinking about your design. So for example, we have made modifications to our product several times because of feedback that we receive from customers. And this is something that you want to think about asking your contractor about changes they can make, or your vendor, things they can do differently with their physical product design, if that's something that they can do. So on your worksheet, think about what are some key features you would like to see when it comes to that physical solution that you have in mind. Write them down. On the area of performance monitoring, so this is after you've already implemented something, now you're going to really be checking things, right? You're planning ahead for this, but what you're trying to do is continuously monitor performance to make sure that you're achieving your objectives. So for example, in our case, with a Florida DEP project that we worked on, we were analyzing debris that was being collected at each location that had stormwater filters. This gave us some very good data. We realized that some locations had 5 times more debris than others, even though geographically they were very close. So this has significant implications for future maintenance. So this is why you want to think about how you're going to analyze things so that then you can use that information as you have a broader scale rollout. With feedback, you want to gather feedback to identify any issues and training opportunities. You also want to establish a plan for ongoing maintenance and support, and conduct a post-implementation review to assess the overall success of your project. Here we transition again to the conversation that I had with Joe when he was with the city of Aventura to talk about the results that they saw and how he used that information to expand beyond a pilot project.
And in my accounts, I had funds set aside for, storm drain cleaning and all these. So I utilized some of that money for the pilot program. And, we documented, we videoed, we did all these things internally so that when I went to my next budget cycle and I explained how good this is going and what I could save, they bought into the 2-year program to get it completed. And, I also talk, like I told you before, that it'll pay for itself in a matter of time. And this is why I'm spending this many thousands of dollars every year to clean a drain. I don't clean drains for 5 years. I have this much money left over, and this costs this. And so, it's simple math, and it made sense. And it's been now, it's been five years maybe since it's been completed.
Now it's time for action. So this might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but please try it out with me this one time. We'll do it twice actually during this presentation, but this first time. So take a photo of your worksheet. So this is just a photo of that first side, the one that talks about solutions. Once you have that photo, please think about somebody that you trust that is not going to be too judgmental, but that will actually be able to work with you, and send them an email. This doesn't have to be a complicated email. Here's a draft example of an email. So you can just try and start the process of setting up that first meeting. This might be something you've been wanting to do for a very long time. It might be a passion project of yours that you've had for quite a while. So this is your opportunity to send off this email. It doesn't have to be too long. If you feel comfortable, go ahead and attach the photo of your worksheet. Again, this is not something that's going to commit you to anything. Just phrase it in a way, hey, you're available to talk. Just have some ideas I want to run by you. I did this workshop. You can blame it on me that you sent them the email. But I want you to be able to, during this presentation, take that first step, that first action step towards the direction of achieving the goal that you want to achieve. Okay, now that that's done, here's the physical solution survey. So please go ahead and scan the QR code that's on your screen. It should also be on that same worksheet, so you can fill it out. This helps us get feedback from you, also an understanding of what you might need some assistance with that you would like our participation with, so that we can then achieve what I mentioned at the beginning, which is, we're here for you and we want you to succeed. So this will help us then reach out to you afterwards and follow up with you. So please take a moment to do that. Okay, thank you for doing that. Now we're moving to the next section, which is digital solutions. So this is very similar to a physical implementation, but there's some things that are a little bit different when it comes to digital solutions. So thinking about the business needs analysis, all right, what business problem or opportunity does the software need to address? Okay, so for example, when we began originally with the QR code storm drain markers, our original intent was to improve community education and outreach and allow residents to learn about stormwater pollution. But then it quickly became noticeable that this had a lot more benefit if it was used internally by public works personnel, so they can unlock maintenance and facilitate their reporting. And then we extended this to other capabilities like QR codes, for example, that can be used on streetlights or trash cans so the community can report issues or for your in-house team to report things. Needs can evolve, but thinking about this in your worksheet, write down what are the main issues you're trying to address, or what are the new capabilities or opportunities you're aiming for with the software solution. Okay, if you're having a little bit of a hard time thinking about this, here are some categories that you can consider. Improving efficiency and productivity by switching away, for example, from a paper-based system, communicating more effectively or collaborating easier with your colleagues or the community, managing data better, improving customer service, improving management of several systems to gain efficiencies. So these are just some different ways that software systems are typically very beneficial. Now, in the area of stakeholder analysis, similar to with physical solutions, we need to identify all the stakeholders that are impacted by the technology. So in your worksheet, write down the names of some people or groups that should be included in the conversation. For example, who will use the system? Is it maintenance personnel that are doing field work? Is it community members? Others? What employees or internal personnel need to review and approve the system before it's deployed? Is it your IT department? Is it a different organization? Also, who may want to obtain data or outputs collected from the system? So for example, there may be somebody that's conducting MS4 reports, and they may benefit from this data relating to inspections and maintenance. So they might not use the system on a day-to-day basis, but they can certainly benefit from what's gathered from this software system that you would like to try out. Then there's a requirements gathering. This is when you're translating business needs to specific software requirements. So this worked out really well for us when we were working with Nashville and some other cities. So what we do is we write down the processes that the cities are currently following. And then we even get physical copies of paper forms if they're trying to get away from paper forms in this example. Okay, so this allows us to build a system that is familiar to the people that are already using the paper in that example, and also make logic work in a way that makes sense to people. And of course, we're trying to make sure that we're increasing efficiencies where possible. So the digital system should be better than either an older digital system or a paper system if that's the case. Another example was with the city of Laurel, Maryland. So we spoke to their IT department about mapping capabilities that Public Works wanted to have. And because we had a very good understanding from IT and from Public Works what exactly they needed, this helped us to create more complex logic in the system. And we didn't have to rework things later on that would have eventually increased the cost of implementation. So those are two different types of success stories because we clearly defined what the requirements were. So in your worksheet, write down, thinking about the software that you have in mind, what are some specific software requirements or other needs that you would like to have with the software? Thank you for that. Now, when it comes to software selection, there are many different solutions out there that can potentially meet your requirements. But what are some apps that you would like to consider? Or which companies would you like to contact to see what they can do? Please write that down in your worksheet. Thank you. Okay, so now on the feasibility study side of things, we need to think about assessing technical requirements, right? How much are things going to cost? What's the operational feasibility of this? And you also want to avoid hidden costs. For example, implementation costs. Are they fixed or are they variable? What happens if the implementation takes longer than expected? This is something that can be unique to software projects sometimes. Data migration, right? Are there costs, limits to the amount of data that can be migrated from older systems to newer systems, or data entry? What are the costs of migrating additional data? Customization costs. This is where you want to get a very clear understanding of the cost for any customizations that you need. You want to think about what is considered customization and what is not considered customization. Get examples of this if you can from your vendor. This is not something that you need to think about writing right now in your worksheet, but these are different considerations when you're doing a feasibility study for software projects. Also, maintenance and support fees. What's included with the maintenance fees? Are there separate charges for customer support? Upgrading costs. How often are the upgrades released? If you have, for example, a native application that resides on your device, an app that's on your cell phone or on your computers. Also, are there separate charges for that, right? And then exit clauses. What happens if you want to switch vendors? Are there penalties? How is the data returned to you? So you want to also ask these what if questions from your vendors. For example, what if we need to add more users? Is there an additional cost? Is there an additional process? What's going to happen there? What if we need to integrate with a new system in the future? So these are things to consider. For example, with our software, we have what's called an application programming interface, an API for short. Many different companies have APIs that allow you to share information between systems. This makes things very easy. It can help reduce the time it takes for people to start using a new system while still having others using the other system for different purposes. Now, depending on the company that you're working with and what their technical capabilities are for their systems, they may or may not have APIs that can be used, or they may not be sufficient for what you need. So these are all questions that you would be asking, and this is why it's important to think about other different systems that you need to integrate with. Then you want to build contingency in your budget. So for example, you want to have a contingency for unexpected costs. So software implementations, just like many other types of projects, they often don't go as planned, even if you plan a lot. So try to build a contingency for that. For your project scope definition, you want to define what's included and excluded in the project. You also want to have a project plan that includes detailed tasks, timelines, resources, and dependencies between things. And from the risk management side of things, you want to identify potential risks and develop mitigation strategies. A lot of this are things that you don't need to think about right now during this session, but they are important when you're considering software projects. Then you go to the how, okay? So the system architecture, you want to design the software architecture, including how it will integrate with existing systems, how data will flow, security considerations, and the user interface, typically called UI, right? Or UX for user experience. So in your worksheet, what are other software systems that this system that you have in mind, right, needs to communicate with or interact with? So for example, if I have a business and I'm trying to sell my products online, not only do I need to think about the website, but I may also need to think about my accounting system. So in the case of, let's say, a stormwater type of management or asset management system, maybe you need to share information that's collected in the field. Let's say in the case of the QR codes that we have, you might want to send that data over to a 311 system that's already in place and people love and it's good. So the API, the application programming interface, would need to talk to that 311 system. So what are other software systems that the system that you have in mind may need to communicate with? Next, on the customization side of things, determine the level of customization that may be required. So can the software be configured to meet these needs, or will custom development be necessary? This is not something that you need to think about right now during this session, but it is something that is good to think about as you consider your software implementation. You want to minimize custom code if possible, and a perfect example is with the city of Nashville in Tennessee. We took a really deep dive into the requirements. We reviewed every single little thing, and this allowed us to actually complete the project later on within budget as needed. You want to think about your data migration strategy. If data is to be migrated from legacy systems, you need to develop a comprehensive plan to transfer that data. So this includes data cleansing, transformation, validation. Data integrity is super important for this step as well. Then your testing plan. You're going to have a testing plan so you can cover things like unit testing, integration testing, acceptance testing by the users, right? And performance testing for different speed, for example, requirements that you may have, or other types of tests that you need to conduct. This is not something that you're going to do right now during this quick session, but these are things that are important to think about for your software projects. And then, of course, your training plan. So similar to a new physical solution that's implemented where many different people may be involved, you want to think about designing a plan for the end users, consider the different learning styles that people have, give hands-on training, documentation, and support as well. Now that we've covered a lot of these different things, let's talk about the implementation and deployment, the doing. Okay, so similar to a physical solution, you'll want to have a pilot deployment. So you want to start with a deployment of a small group of users if possible, so you can test the software essentially in a real-world environment. So you can identify any issues and also learn for new things that you may want to do once you go a little bit broader in your implementation. So for example, when we were meeting with the city of Laurel in Maryland and also Nashville, Tennessee, we were talking to them not only about what they needed today, but also things that they might want in the future. So this allowed us to consider those features when we were building things. And then things became a lot easier because we're able to already consider from the beginning what we need later on. So this is similar to a car, for example, being designed to consider potential users. This similar to software, right? Where you can prepare the system ahead of time for potential new items, even if you don't know exactly what they're going to be just yet. Another example is with the city of Hallandale Beach. So the moment we put the QR codes on the road, the first thing they said to us was, you know what? We need people to be able to easily send a message to us via this QR code. So then because of that, we developed an email notification system that triggers an email notification the moment somebody fills out that QR code and uploads their photo. So this quick feedback that we received from field personnel allowed us to improve the software right away. So in your worksheet, what group or organization would be ideal to conduct a pilot project with the software that you have in mind? Okay, so now that you have that written down, think about the phased rollout. So this is essentially a gradual rollout of the software to the rest of the organization in phases. So this allows for lessons learned to be applied, and it also minimizes disruptions. So in your worksheet, when would it be good to start a pilot project and for how long? So please, take the time to add some ideas in there. Again, similar to the implementation of the physical solution, you're not really setting something in stone right now. These are just some ideas that you're writing so that then you can communicate that with your team and try to set up a meeting. Another item important here for implementation and deployment is the go live support. So you want to make sure that there's adequate support for users during and after the go live period. This might involve, for example, a help desk, online resources, or dedicated support staff. These are all different things to consider for software projects. Then when you go to monitoring and evaluation, similar to a physical type of solution, you want to do that as well with software. So you want to continuously monitor the performance of the software to make sure it's meeting your objectives. You want to track key metrics like uptime, response time, user adoption, which is like, is my team actually using this software as I intended? So in your worksheet, write down what are some performance metrics that we should consider, right? For this software that you're thinking about, this idea that you have, what are some metrics, some numbers that you might look at? Or maybe if it's not a quantitative metric, a qualitative one that you should be considering. User feedback. So you want to gather feedback from users on a regular basis. This can be surveys, feedback forms, or user groups to identify areas for improvement. An example here was with Nashville, Tennessee, with their administrative panel for our software. We had regular check-ins with the folks that were using the admin panel. so they can show us the features that were most important to them. This is based off of their experience using the system. And then this allowed us to make things easier for them and also for others. If you want to have a good feedback loop, maybe you can set up some recurring meetings. This would be with your vendor, if it's a software solution provider, or with your team, so you can gather the feedback that you need. Even if it's a quick meeting, this makes sure that the ideas are not forgotten. On maintenance and support, you want to establish a plan for ongoing maintenance and support. For example, fixing of bugs, updates, and security patches. So these are things that are important for software projects that are a bit unique there when compared to other types of technologies. Then you have your post-implementation review. So similar to the way that Joe was analyzing the performance of stormwater filters on the physical side of things, you do the same thing for software. So you want to conduct a review to assess the success of the project, identify lessons learned before you go broader with your implementation, and even when you do go broader with your implementation. So this is a continuous thing. Okay, so now this is the part, once again, that you may not feel too comfortable with. So please just try it out. Okay, take a picture of the worksheet again. So this is, of course, the side of the worksheet that focuses on the software side. And then write a quick email or text message if that's how you prefer to communicate with your colleagues. And just, hi, John, are you available for a quick meeting to talk about the ways we can address X? So that's the problem that you identified in your worksheet with Y, the software solution that you had in mind. And then the reason this sample message is phrased the way that it is because you're really making it clear that you don't have anything set in stone. You want to have a conversation because, again, with the stakeholder side of things that we spoke about with physical solutions and software solutions, you need to have a team effort here if you want things to be successful for your project. So that's why you just want to start things off with a meeting, quick and easy email. Hopefully that kicks off the process. Once again, we want to be here for you, SOP Technologies, so that we can help address any issues or assist in any way that we can, and also get feedback about this portion of the session. So please scan the QR code that's there on the screen. If you cannot scan it on the screen, on the sheet of paper itself, you should be able to scan the QR code so you can provide us with your information and thoughts that you have or any assistance that we may provide. Another topic I spoke about with Joe is, what advice does he have for young professionals? Here's what he said.
In any profession, you're learning the overall points of the job that you're in, but more importantly, whenever you get to a city or a job, because I moved 3 or 4 different cities. Every city's different. Every city's built different. And so it's important to kind of know the lay of the land, I guess is the good word, and how everything works. And I had to learn to see, what were the vulnerable areas, and then we have to adjust to it. My advice would be, even though if you're a CFM or you're even an engineering degree in hydrology or whatever, you still have to understand where you're at and how to address it, because every place is different. And so I think it behooves you to do your homework once you're in, and then I think you'll be fine.
On the area of a shout out, I also asked Joe who helped him in his career. So I think his response can potentially help you too as you're progressing in your career, whether it's stormwater, public works, or working with a municipality. Here's what he said.
I actually have 2. I mean, when I was in Surfside, Miami Beach was right next door, and Eric Carpenter, who's now the city manager, was the public works director, and just instrumental in his knowledge and his understanding of how water moves. He was always able to be called. You could say, hey, what do you think about this? And he always had an answer or a helping hand, and that was good, helpful to me. And the other one was with just the APWA organization. I encourage everybody that's in the public works field. It's the largest organization in the world. Our South Florida branch is one of the premier branches in the state. There's 11, and you know, you always get a call. You always have someone to bounce things off of. Public works is public works. It's just the situations are the same, just the names change. And that's also a big helping hand. Whenever you need something, you'll see emails coming through, people asking for stuff in our web, and you get answers, you know. So it's a good organization to bounce stuff off of. Like, you're not alone, you know. If you're a director in a city and you're never alone, because you have these avenues.
Thank you so much. I hope this session was very informative for you. I also hope that you took action and you were able to send off some quick text messages, some emails. If not, please do so soon after the meeting. Again, the goal here is for you to have your projects move forward. That was the intent here. And I hope that at the very least, you gain some good understanding of things. And maybe if it helped you just a little bit more to be more successful with your projects, I consider that a win. So thank you very much to all of you, and also for the broader team that organized this. Thank you.